Hi, this is Langerman from Violinna.live, helping you along your musical journey. In this video, I will share with you 4 scientifically proven and researched tactics that help to memorize a piece more efficiently, especially if you have to learn something in a very short amount of time, you don't have months at your disposal. And these are also really helpful if you need to learn something that's difficult to memorize. Be sure to stick around until the end of the video because as a bonus, I will share with you the ultimate secret weapon to memorizing faster and more accurately. Now, I have to be honest, before making this video, for the longest time, I thought I'm probably not the best person to teach someone else how to memorize. And maybe I was right. You see, memorization always came naturally to me growing up. I spent the first couple of years of my violin life learning almost everything by ear and kinesthetically. Of course, as I got older and began playing in orchestra and studied repertoire, my musical skill diversified. And even then, I noticed that when I practiced, let's say, sonatas that don't require memorization, I would always end up memorizing them anyway, usually by accident. So by now, some of you are probably wondering, but Ina, if memorization came so naturally for you, and for me it's always such a struggle, then our brains are wired super differently, so why should I listen to you? Well, first of all, some of the strategies that I'm about to share with you are probably things that I was doing without realizing I was doing them, and I didn't know that there was a name for it. Second, a natural skill will always have its limits. And we can't rely on talent completely because at some point we're gonna hit a wall. We're gonna be challenged to the point that a plateau is gonna occur, and we have to embrace the growth mindset in order to move forward at this point. Now, to learn more about what I just said, go read Daniel Coyle's book called The Talent Code. In different chapters of our lives or in specific situations, we may have to learn the same old thing in a different way. For me, the first such challenge occurred, it came somewhat as a surprise. I had to learn Bach's A minor fugue for graduate school for a recital. I remember playing through it one day in the practice room from memory, no music, and suddenly realized that I played a wrong chord. After which I ended up somewhere near the beginning of the fugue. And I heard about stories like this, it was kind of like being in the wrong lane on a highway in New Jersey and then you realize when it's too late. So thankfully I made sure that this would not happen at the recital. Of course, I heard enough stories about this happening at recitals. And of course, similar things happen with players of any instrument. Let's say you're playing a classical sonata and all of a sudden you're in the recapitulation, the transition theme, and this is where the chord progression changes in order for you to stay in the correct key. This is where a lot of mistakes happen. Okay, now fast forward to today. Currently, my memorization muscles are not nearly as sharp as they were when I was in school. While, of course, I still practice excerpts of music from memory. After all, that is the best approach to listening more intently in the moment. My job as a freelancer, which is mainly in orchestral and chamber music settings, doesn't require it. So I've grown pretty lazy in that regard. Memorization is like a muscle. If you don't use it for some time, it will atrophy. So what to do when all of a sudden you're faced with the need to memorize something in a short amount of time and you have a strict deadline, you gotta perform it somewhere. First and foremost, step 1 is to listen to recordings frequently, both passively and actively. And what I mean by that, by passively is when you do it when you listen to sort of in the background music, when you're sleeping, or if you're doing a task that's doesn't take up a lot of cognitive ability. So don't listen while reading a book, for example. Maybe instead listen to the music while you're taking a walk or washing the dishes. Or active listening, in which case you are watching the score, following along, or visualizing how you're going to play it, or maybe you're singing along, maybe you're airplaying along. Step number 2 is mental repetitions, alternating with physical repetitions. Now, the basic process of music learning or music playing, that is, you see the music from the score, it goes through our eyes into our mind or through audiation, and then it goes through the execution. Of course, this process also happens when we are sight reading, but it happens at a much quicker and in the moment kind of way, which doesn't really help with long-term memory. In this case, we want to practice phrase by phrase, chunk by chunk, and with many repetitions. That's to establish some of that long-term memory. And we want to do it nice and slowly and go through the motions, but with intent. We want to visualize the entire phrase correctly. Once you can do that in your mind, then it's time to play it. So you go back and forth with visualizing, imagining how you're going to do it. You want to imagine it correctly, and then you play it. Repeat it several times. You can do it one of two ways. You can either alternate, go back and forth between mental repetition and physical repetition, or you can imagine it a few times, between 3 and 7 times correctly. If you can, and then you do it physically once or twice. Actually, this is a great tip. In case you don't have a lot of time to actually physically practice, this is a great trick, is to do like 70% mental reps and then like 30% physical reps. This also helps to prevent, risk of injury, so you don't over practice. Go as slow as you need to get it right, and this can take a lot of patience. Before we get to number 3, if you're getting any value from this video so far, please give this video a quick thumbs up down below to help support this channel, and so that YouTube is more likely to share this with people who could really benefit from the content. Number 3 is self-coaching. This is when, as you practice, you count out loud or you talk out loud while practicing, as if you're your own teacher, commending yourself when to remember, do this shift to third finger here, go from second position to fifth, for example. I'm making things up right now. Saying which finger number, where it's tricky. A really important one that's really helpful. Say the name of the chord you're about to play, or the function of the chord within the phrase, within the progression. This is so helpful in Bach or in classical sonatas. Sing along, sing and finger without using your instrument. You can do this if you're traveling, like if you're on a train, or if you're commuting. You could sing and air bow without the instrument. So many ways to practice without the instrument. And you can do this all with the score in front of you, but at the same time, you can go back and forth. You do the same kind of self-coaching with the music and without, one section at a time. Going to number 4 is interval practice. I learned this one from Noah Kagayama, the Bulletproof Musician. What you're going to do for this is you will select 3 sections of the music, and you're going to spend a short amount of time on each, like maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and you're going to practice it on a rotational basis. Like, let's say you have section A, B, and C, and then you take turns, rotate A, B, C, A, B, C. Or the other thing you can do is, if one section is particularly hard to memorize, what you'll do instead for the interval practice is you'll practice that difficult section for just a few minutes, then go play something else, anything else. It could be an easier passage. And then you return back to the problematic one, and then you go practice some other passage, and you return back to the difficult one. So you see, you go back and forth, and you sprinkle it around. So by doing that, instead of spending 30 minutes on the difficult passage, and instead you're kind of doing 3 to 5 minutes here and then 3 to 5 minutes there, this is called interleaved practice, in which case it allows for the things that you practice, if you do it correctly with intent, it gets stored in the long-term memory that much quicker. Here is a bonus for those of you who've made it this far. Thank you for watching. Here's the secret weapon to memorizing music quicker, and that is taking frequent breaks and getting adequate amount of sleep. Just like with interval practice, stepping away from something allows it to kind of get stored in that long-term memory, or to myelinate. If you read Daniel Coyle's book, The Talent Code, you'll understand what I mean by that. You want it to kind of get stored physically and mentally in that long-term memory. And there's more than one kind of memory with music. There's the physical memory, there's the oral memory, the kinesthetic. And by taking the breaks and by getting enough sleep, all of those different types of memory, they kind of come together. It kind of creates a connection between all those senses. Good sleep also allows us to get better quality work during our waking hours when we do get that practice in. So what happens is we make better decisions and do less but better work in the practice room. So those are my big tips on memorizing music. I'm sure that there are many, many more things that I left out, but these are kind of the big important ones, I think, especially if it's something that you need to learn quickly and efficiently. Let me know your biggest takeaway in the comment section below, and also let me know what maybe something I did not mention that is really helpful to you when you memorize music. Share that with me as well. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, happy practicing.